Todd McCarthy to serve as Associate Minister of Transportation. Dan Kearns, The Standard. Scugog. The Durham Riding's Member of Provincial Parliament, MPP Todd McCarthy, is joining Premier Doug Ford's cabinet. Following the resignation of Housing Minister Steve Clark, the Premier announced a number of changes to his cabinet, including the appointment of MPP McCarthy as Associate Minister of Transportation. The changes were announced on Monday, September 4th. I am honoured to be appointed Ontario's Associate Minister of Transportation. I want to thank Premier Doug Ford for his trust and confidence. It is with great excitement and humility I join the cabinet, MPP McCarthy said in a statement. The Ministry of Transportation is currently undertaking transformational work, building more roads and transit than ever before. I am eager to hit the ground running. Together with newly appointed Minister of Transportation, Prabmeet Zakaria, I will continue the important work of Minister Caroline Mulrooney and Minister Stan Cho, and get it done for Ontarians. Some of the other changes to the provincial cabinet include Paul Calandra becoming the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Caroline Mulrooney becoming the President of the Treasury Board, and Stan Cho becoming the Minister of Long-Term Care. I also want to congratulate Rob Flack, Todd McCarthy, and Nina Tangri, who are taking on important new roles as Associate Ministers to build attainable homes, modular homes, transit, and support small businesses, Premier Ford said at a press conference on Tuesday, September 5th. MPP McCarthy becomes the second North Durham representative in Premier Ford's cabinet, joining MPP Peter Bethlenfalvy, Minister of Finance, and Pickering Uxbridge.
Update on Uxbridge Public Works projects. Daryl Knight, The Standard, Uxbridge. The Township's Public Works Department recently provided an update on a pair of projects within the municipality, the South Balsam Pond and the reconstruction of Cemetery Road. According to the Township, design work has finished on the South Balsam Pond, and a permit was recently received by the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, LSRCA, for the project. However, the Township is still awaiting its permit from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. All tender documents for the project are complete, but given the time of year, the decision has been made to wait until the spring of 2024 to begin construction. In the coming weeks, residents can expect to see some prep work begin in the area, including the installation of a silt fence around the pond to prevent snapping turtles from hibernating in the area, which would result in an at-risk species having to be relocated in the spring, which could potentially delay the project. The Township added they have hired a licensed consultant to relocate any turtles currently in the pond and have the necessary wildlife scientific collector's authorization from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. In February and March of next year, a contractor will visit the site to cut down any trees which may need removal. This measure will prevent birds from nesting in the spring, which could also potentially delay the project. Offering an update for the planned Cemetery Road reconstruction, the municipality recently noted all design and tender documents have been completed, as well as a permit from the LSRCA. However, much like the South Balsam Pond project, the Township is still awaiting the permit from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. With an eye towards avoiding delays due to winter weather, the Township will begin the tender process in January-February of 2024 for the section of the Cemetery Road from Toronto Street South to approximately 147 Cemetery Road. The second section is expected to be tendered in 2025 and will continue from 147 Cemetery Road to the south end of the existing curbs. Durham Region will be installing sanitary sewer services to the property line of each lot as part of the project. The final phase of the Cemetery Road reconstruction is planned for 2026. It will cover the section north of the existing curbs to the northern intersection of Cemetery Road and Toronto Street South. These plans are subject to budget approval and securing all needed permits. The Township will begin the 2024 municipal budget planning process later this autumn, and all meetings will be open to the public, as well as live-streamed through the Township's website. Brock seeking resident input on core services review. Daryl Knight, The Standard, Brock Township. In an effort to improve public participation in the Core Services Review Initiative for the municipality, Brock is inviting stakeholders to participate in an interactive open house later this month. Open to residents, community groups, and other stakeholders, the open house will be held in person and virtually from 6 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, September 20th. The in-person portion of the open house event will be held at Town Hall on Cameron Street in Cannington. Those unable to attend can participate through Zoom and a live stream of the event on the Township of Brock's website. The Core Services Review has been an ongoing goal of councillors since the last autumn's election, with the priority being to strike a balance between community priorities and the long and short-term financial and operational goals of the municipality. Those attending in person are encouraged to bring a smartphone, tablet, or laptop computer so that they can access the online polling tools which will be utilized to track responses from those taking part in the process. The Township has undertaken several measures to date, which were recently highlighted in advance of the September 20th open house, and will be reviewed again on the night of the event. These measures include the Council's performance, brand development, establishing wildly important goals, WIGs, key performance indicators, and service delivery enhancement. El Salvador Pastor to visit Port Perry, Don Wilmer, Port Perry United Church, Scugog. For most Canadians, being able to go about our daily activities with a sense of safety and security is something we take for granted. Not so for the people of El Salvador, the Central American country of 6 million. Today, we have a peace accord, but no peace, says Pastor Miguel Thomas Castro of Iglesia Bautista Emmanuel Baptist Church, in the capital city of San Salvador. For 12 years, between a coup in 1979 and a peace accord brokered in 1992, Salvadorans lived through a brutal civil war in which 75,000 were killed and another 8,000 simply disappeared. On suspicion of being a sympathizer, Pastor Miguel was abducted by death squads and tortured by his own government. 24 members of his church were martyred. Pastor Miguel fled to Canada. 3 years later, he returned, determined to bring peace to his hurting country. Under the leadership of Pastor Miguel, and with material and financial help from abroad, the people of Iglesia Bautista Emmanuel are working to promote a culture of peace. Poverty, mistrust, and pain from the past are all barriers to healing and peace. The church people work so the Salvadoran people and their government might learn to trust one another again. Pastor Miguel's church focuses on youth, providing safe, affordable education and programs so youth will have options other than joining the street gangs which proliferate in the city. The church gives them a safe place to belong and hope for tomorrow. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, a total of 16 young adults and adults from Port Perry United Church traveled to El Salvador on a week-long mission awareness trip to see the people of Iglesia Bautista Emmanuel in action. They returned home changed by that experience. If you are interested in learning more about the important work being done in El Salvador, Pastor Miguel will be visiting Port Perry this Friday, September 15th. A pot blessing supper in the auditorium of Port Perry United Church, 294 Queen Street at Simcoe Street, begins at 6 p.m., with a presentation and discussion time to follow.
Welcome to You've Got to Be Kidding, a podcast that offers a different perspective of life around us. Listen now to author Jonathan van Bilsen.
We take so many things for granted during our everyday existence. It made me wonder the origin of some of them. For example, did you know the bicycle was invented following the summer of 1816 when a massive volcano eruption caused worldwide famine? People could not feed their horses and killed them for meat. So Baron Karl von Drais invented a new form of transport, and it certainly caught on. The birth control pill was invented by John Rock, a devout Catholic who earlier ran a clinic that taught Catholicism-approved birth control methods. He thought the church might embrace his new invention. Boy, was he wrong. A fellow named Wilson Greatbatch was trying to detect a heartbeat by using a piece of electronic equipment he was working on. He mistakenly used the wrong transistor, so his device sent heart pulses out instead. He called it the pacemaker. Travel agencies are everywhere and quite popular. The first travel agent was Thomas Cook. He started selling tickets to give British people something to do besides drink, since he was a member of the temperance movement. We all associate Braille with a reading and writing system for people who are visually impaired, but it was originally created for military purposes. Napoleon asked Charles Barbier, a captain in his army, with developing a system by which soldiers could communicate silently day or night. The system Barbier devised became known as night writing, a code consisting of cells up to 12 raised dots symbolizing every letter of the French alphabet and then some. The military hated the idea, so Barbier took his encoding system to the National Institute for the Blind in Paris to see if there was a potential use for it. It was there that he met a 15-year-old boy by the name of Louis Braille. After discussing the system, Braille proceeded to transform it into something workable. Braille reduced the number of dots into a 2x6 cell that neatly fit beneath a single fingertip, thereby creating the first viable system allowing the blind to read. Not to mention etching his name directly over top of Barbier's in the history books. For those of you in Port Perry, you're no doubt familiar with Palmer Park, named after the alleged father of chiropractic. D.D. Palmer was a spiritualist who claimed to have received the idea from a ghost and said chiropractic can heal your soul and raise your intellect. I have absolutely no comment for this one. I'm Jonathan van Bilsen, and this is You've Got to Be Kidding.
Ontario to launch a review of lands in the Greenbelt. Dan Kearns, The Standard. The Ontario government is going to be conducting a fulsome review of the Greenbelt lands, following a process to remove and replace some Greenbelt lands which Ontario's auditor said was biased and lacking transparency. The announcement of this review was made at a press conference by Premier Doug Ford on Tuesday, September 5th. When the previous government introduced the Greenbelt, they put in legislation which mandated the province to review it at least every 10 years. This review includes understanding appropriate boundary changes, Premier Ford explained. The Premier stated the review will involve a re-evaluation of the remaining land swap sites. These proposals will have to survive on their own merit, Premier Ford said. The Premier also stated he was not happy with the process the government used at the time to change the Greenbelt. The process we used to make changes to the Greenbelt could have been better. The process should have been better. The changes to the Greenbelt boundary started in September of 2022. Then, material prepared by the Housing Ministry in response to the instruction provided by the Housing Ministry's Chief of Staff and signed by the Housing Minister and the Deputy Minister of the Housing Ministry was presented to Cabinet, according to Auditor General Bonnie Lysyck's report. The changes involved removing a total of 15 land sites from the Greenbelt to support the provincial government's plan to increase housing across the province. The Premier promised the review would include consultation with municipalities, Indigenous leaders, and residents of the province. Most of all, this review will speak to the people this issue impacts most, Premier Ford said.
You've Got to Be Kidding was presented by X4 Media with permission from the Standard Media Group. We endeavor to make all information contained in this program as accurate as possible at production time. X4 Media and the Standard Media Group are not responsible for any liabilities resulting from information contained in this program. For more information, please visit x4media.ca.
The Standard Podcast was produced by Greenstream Studio for the Standard newspaper.